Hey, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Folks, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
Rahul,
Yes.
Daniela and possibly me, we're gonna, she's going to provide some more detailed requirements for user client access control,
Okay.
if we have time.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Daniela, are you okay with that?
Unmute. Sorry, I was mute. Yes, it take a few minutes.
Okay.
But
Uh,
we go.
Yeah, go ahead.
But now, no, you presented the agenda and okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
After Rahul finish.
Yeah. Let's wait for another minute. Folks would be joining in.
Hi all.
Hey, hello.
Hey, she.
Hey.
Prashant.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, this is a KubeCon week, right? So it's possible that lot of most of the folks might be.
Yeah.
I think we might be in KubeCon. So let me share my screen. We have a quick agenda. Let us. So this is something that you just called out for. Anything else that we want to add here? All right. Manually, the flow is yours. Do you want to share your screen or something, or do you want me to share something as the document that we had previously had prepared?
I don't know if Byung, you share the document or we show the local copy. Byung?
Sorry, I was mute. So you can
No.
use your local copy, and then once the team is okay with it,
Okay.
we're gonna post to the link.
Immediately after. Okay, that's perfect.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
I share.
Yeah.
I share. Okay. Okay, let's open this one. Okay, as we agreed last time, when the document has been approved, the idea was to have an action point to go in some more detail about the requirement that we proposed about this identity and access management for NEFIO. And then we are, how to say, a sort of a work in progress, but at least some requirement is ready at least to share. And then let's go with requirement one, that is the one more related to the authentication mechanism. And then at the high level, we said that the NEFIO security mechanism shall support the authentication for both human user and client for machine to machine and workload and any resource that is characterized by an identity. So let's go a little more into detail, telling that requirement 1.1 is that the OpenID Connect client credential flow shall be supported for machine-to-machine authentication. And in this flow, the secret has to be supported as credential. The second one is requirement 1.2, and again in the the OpenID Connect client credential flow for machine to machine, we we have to support the X509 certificate as a credential in this flow. And then we have two other sub-requirements that are 1.3, that is the authorization code flow of OpenID Connect that shall be supported for human user authentication. And we use here the basic authorization code flow with the password. But we also have the possibility to configure as a requirement 1.4 the OpenID connected authorization code flow with for the human user using a multi-factor authentication that, as I said, is configurable, and then could be with the password plus some OTP, one-time password, or some biometric data.
Hey, Manuela, can I ask a
Yes,
question?
yes, sure.
Requirement 1.3 states authorization code flow shall be supported for human user authentication. So it says authorization code flow shall be supported for human user authentication with a password as credential. So I'm not clear what that requirement would actually entail. Is it about authorization, or is it about authentication with password as credential?
The question is clear, is that there is, how to say, in the standard of the protocol, there is this typical misunderstanding, because the flow is for authentication, but historically, the name of the flow is authorization code flow. So, okay, the name is inside the protocol is authorization code flow, but it's used for authentication. After that, I don't have any permission to do anything, just authentication.
So Raul,
Yeah.
OIDC specification, they just confuse some of the, not clear the naming, but like authentication server, authorization server, they just kind of just as a manual explained. So this is authorization protocol and to support authentication. So,
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
because inside the protocol there is an attribute that is the grant type, and in that grant time you put the name of the flow that you're going to use, and one is the authorization code. Before of that there was the password code, but is deprecated now, so I didn't put it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, one question, Manila, over here. So we are seeing client credential flow from machine to machine. So is that, so it's somewhat similar to workload identity in some sense, right? Because we are looking at machine to machine. Is my understanding correct, or is that?
You're right. You're right. I didn't detail the workload identity that is typically included in the machine to machine, and but I didn't specify it because maybe in the middle we also need some other infrastructure from an architecture point of view, and we also need that someone work on this workload identity part in order to better detail how this client credential flow could work with the workload identities.
So one comment I have is we used to have had question of this. So for example, ONAP case, we use a human user and also machine to machine app user. So I understand the ship where you're coming from, but some of them like either external system, not just the nephew, the subsystem, external system when they want to talking to some system, the nephew or ONAP, for example. But for example, let's say ORAN talking to ONAP, for example. It's not that they don't want to use human user, but they want to, access machine to machine. In that case, that you want to use certificate, not so because no human involved, automated flow. In that case, we have this use case in the OIDC client, but your case is slightly more the down system. So it's similar, but different purposes in my mind.
Got it. So basically, what you're saying is basically if there is any external system which is already supporting UIDC,
Yes.
client credentials, if you want to
Yes,
interface
yes.
to that, yeah, fair enough. But yeah,
Yes,
probably we can
yes.
just call out in case we have any such requirement as of now. It will be
Yeah.
helpful for prioritization, right? So
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and
So
the split in different sub-requirement is due to the fact that this way you can help the developers, because maybe they can define a different schedule according to the flow that are really required, because in some cases there is some customer that really want a specific flow with respect to something else. So telling just OpenID Connect support is not enough. It is better to specify.
yep, okay.
Okay, so let's go to requirement 2. And this is more related to authorization. And in the general high-level requirement 2, we say that the NEFIO security components shall support the flexible authorization based on OIDC OAuth2 protocols, and as an example, it has the support for RBAC, TBAC, and or EBAC. Okay, let's say that all these RBAC, TBAC, all these ACK, let me say, are not at the same level of maturity, and this is looking at the implementation that we see all around the world. They are not at the same level, and we know that the major part of the authorization system support RBAC. Instead, the other are a little more, how to say, not so mature and not so spreadly supported. So let's split them. And the first requirement is the 2.1, and is the OpenID Connect authorization via UMI, that is the user managed access. And this is really strictly related to the role and a collaboration typically between an IDAM system and an API gateway to share the role and the permission related to the specific role to collect a valid token to be able to access to the resources. Then we have the requirement 2.2 that role should be defined to give access permission to the system resources, and the resources could be endpoint or workload identities, and maybe also something else. Typically, in the traditional system, we have that the resources are endpoints, but with the evolution of our system to this GitOps approach and so on and so forth, the resources could be also something else. And here I see also some possible interoperability with some policy system to define the resources. Then we have the requirement 2.3, that is, okay, this is simple target-based access control that should be supported. And this is historically typical for system that need to manage some piece of hardware and node and object, manage object below. I mean, in Ericsson, we have it for the ENM, that is a product that manages a real network. And instead, I think that in this system is more important the requirement 2.4, that is ABAC support. And this is pretty new, at least in my experience. And this is the authorization to perform a set of operation could be determined by evaluating attributes associated with the subject, object, and requested operation. And this is the general definition. And in our context, these attributes could be contained in the data of the Porch packages, meaning that this is a tool, a way to have authorization of on a specific data that are contained in the API itself when we configure something, when we're going to add something. Okay,
one question
Yep.
in the context.
Yep.
So TBAC and ABAC support, it's mentioned shall be supported. My understanding is that we'll take it up once the RBAC is supported, right? Like my understanding, RBAC is a must-have. TBAC and ABAC are good to have. Is that understanding correct?
You're right, and it's better to mention it. Thank you for
Okay.
suggesting.
And is there any example in this document which explains what would TBAC-based access control involve or ABAC-based access control involve? Because you mentioned a use case wherein we used attributes or Porsche or something like that to identify the access control. Is there? Do you have a definite use case in mind there?
Okay, not yet, but
Okay.
I take note, and I'm going to add these two things. First one is priority of the sub requirement, as you said, because it's true. It's just that it's not written here, and maybe an example for each of them in order to make it clear what it's used for.
Thank you.
Do you want to go on with the requirement 3?
Go ahead. Well,
No. I just wonder how. How long will it take to enumerate through all the requirements? It won't be since we have time today. We can actually go through.
Okay, just a requirement 3, because
Okay.
the one that we have below are too much work in progress to share. So
Right,
it is
right.
just
Okay.
to start with you and to collect these valuable comments.
Okay. Okay. Even requirement 3 seems to be clear in terms of it's all O&M requirements is what I see.
Right.
Which is fine if you don't have to go through that individually. Can you scroll through the next page, please? If okay, yeah. Can you scroll through for the below? Requirement 4. So you're saying that requirement 4 and 5 is still a work in progress. Requirement 4, 5, 6, and ahead. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you see
Requirements,
that.
yeah.
Yep. Let's go. Byung.
Requirement 6 probably the shifts works probably can handle this one. So if you scroll down a little bit further, manually, we put a note here. The above requirement could fulfill by service mesh with the SPIFFE identity. So we don't have to define. So shift team already working on it, so we can reduce this.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and then I like to show one diagram. This is the draft, but it's in ONAP. We have some study on the. Then, do you mind? Not this one. Not this one. The I shared this morning. Not in this diagram.
Okay.
So,
But it's not in this copy, you see?
No, not this copy. Remember that I put the Spire server and agent I shared with you?
Okay, maybe Byung,
Let me
you
share briefly.
yes, perfect. So
Okay.
let's go.
Okay, you can
take
stop.
yeah.
Okay. This is still work in progress, but I want to show you and the chief especially. And this is what in ONAP we have some study item, part of next generation. But this, as you see, Manuel and I focused on the upper part. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Upper part, right? So here, YDC application client, which is machine to machine. I mentioned the Shiv asked question about that. That's a human user access.
Yeah.
And then going through, this is management cluster. I just titled that one. Ingress controller using Oyster proxy. We're using the as a reference implementation, nephew item, kicklock. And then for human user, it can support redirect. So, so initially the human, they're using the credential. And then once they're talking to authentication server in kicklock, then they're gonna give the token. JDBC token, OIDC token. Then after that, they're gonna go through this the connection, And then for now, we plan to use nephew item, kicklock, and also embedded IDP LDAP, but the operator can change their own configuration. And manual talk about the user and tenant administration using the role access control configuration and target, and then attribute ABAC. So this one I'm just kind of brainstorming the while ago, and this is the existing ONAP sidecar structure and part and sidecar, which is envoy proxy, and we are leveraging Istio control panel and then for policy and pushing up. And then for identity, for example, service mesh is local to cluster, and identity, we just connecting that to Spire and Spire server. That means the still machine to machine, the secure communication going through the envoy, the service mesh base, but anything they need some identity and the unique identity, they are connecting that to Spy agent and Spy server. And then, they have some, node attestation and also registration. So that's why this is kind of a, I tried to make some kind of high level diagram, but
this is a great diagram. This is a great diagram, frankly.
Still working condition, but we're gonna provide more detail in the upper part. And then Shiv, you can, you provide a, nice diagram. I like that. And then we have some connection, how to make connection between the envoy proxy and Spire here. Anyway, this is just quick representation. So I'll refine further with the Manuela, and I'm gonna share maybe next week. Okay, Shiv? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I stop share.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, I think the Spire and service mesh aspects I've not yet come to. But then I think I'll just run through them and then probably discuss with you as to,
sure.
How to go about. So, I mean, you were mentioning 2 points, right? One is basically the MTLS part, and you were mentioning in case it needs some other secrets also, right? I think that was the other thing.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
There is some using the Spire. I found this SDS and the Spire, they delegate all the identity, and then some those things they can handle by Spire, because they are unique across the node and across the cluster. And then this one still acting the MTLS, like as usual. And then I think two things work together. So anyway, this is my brainstorming. So, and then now we're gonna provide more detail here, and also if you have more share insight, we can work together here. Okay, thank you. I'll stop share. Now, again, I'll define this diagram, and I'm gonna share sometime. I'm gonna put this diagram part of the manuals document.
Sounds
next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Shiv, do you want to go next? You've asked for a slot today, right?
Yeah, sure, actually. So I'll just quickly run through some of the queries which came up last time. And so based on that, probably we can see a couple of slides. And then Prashant has a demo set up with the node attestation done. We can take a look at that if time permits, or if you have. Yeah, I'll just quickly share my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen. I think one of the questions that was we left unanswered in the last call was how do we establish the trust, right? Like the root of trust.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I think you're going in that direction. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So basically, so this is how the node attestation works. So we have a Spire agent, which is basically which will read its proof of identity and send it across to the Spire server. And then the Spire server will do a token review request to the API server. And the thing to be noted is that, both these are in different clusters. And since these are in different clusters, we need a service token for the authentication. So this is a quick overview of how the node attestation works. And the initial part where the proof of identity is sent, that is actually protected by the Bootstrap bundle. So if you see how the Bootstrap bundle is obtained, is basically we have the Spire server. The Spire server basically writes the Bootstrap bundle to a config map in the management cluster. And this we need to send it across to the workload cluster. Either we need to copy it, and that's what Prashant has done now, or we need to use the cluster API and send it across to the workload cluster. And once it's on the workload cluster in the config map, the Spire agent will pick it up and then use that bundle to establish a TLS connection to the Spire server for the node attestation. So this is how the Bootstrap bundle is obtained.
So folks, the problem is on what basis is the Spire server going to know that it is talking to the right Spire agent, and how would the Spire agent know that it is talking to the right Spire server for the initial connection? That's where this Bootstrap bundle comes into play. Spire supports two configurations. One is you copy the boot trust bundle in the target Spire agent itself, and then there is a trust bundle URL as well, which can possibly be made use of, where the certificate bundle is kept. Both the options are supported, right? Prashant, did you had a chance to look at both the configurations? There is something called as trust bundle, where you copy the trust bundle to a local file in Spire agent, and like you mentioned, we can copy it as part of. We can make that happen using a cluster APIs when the workload cluster is created. But the other option is that it's possible that someone might say that here are my trusted certificate bundles located on this particular URL. And I think Spire supports that URL model as well, because I was discussing this with someone else today, and they mentioned that the URL model is also supported. Regardless, it should not matter to us, in the sense that whatever user is comfortable with, we can work with it, right? Like, that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah. So the trust bundle, I have seen that aspect, Rahul, but we have not investigated that. That's one point.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think we should be able to check that and also probably provide options. So thereby, we can do both of them. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one aspect regarding the Bootstrap bundle. The next question was, which Wim had, was basically how does the local node attestation work, and how does the configuration look like? So because this is an node attestation across clusters, and this is how the token review request goes to the API server on the other cluster. In case the Spire agent is located on the same cluster, then this is how it look like. I've shown that this is the cluster boundary. So you still have the token review request going from the Spire server, but since it just goes to the local API server, it doesn't need any additional tokens as such, right? So because the normal default service account token or some other token will be there, which has the required role and role binding for the token review. So we don't need another service access token to be configured as a file. So that's why this particular configuration over here, right, whatever we had in the server configuration, this is no longer needed for the case where the Spire agent is located in the same cluster as the Spire server. So that's the only change, but the rest of the flow still remains the same. So this is this also I wanted to clarify because this had come up the last time.
Shiv, one question. The step 3 is to get the node detail information. That's why they contact API server for review.
No, actually, so the step 3 is
3.
basically to verify that whatever is this
Yeah,
proof
yeah,
of
yeah.
identity, whether
Mhm.
that's a valid proof of identity, because this proof of identity is actually signed by the cluster CA in some sense, right? So the verification is done by the API server that yes, this proof of identity is signed by me. So that's why you can trust this proof of identity.
Okay.
And this proof of identity contains the other attributes which are there, using which
Yeah.
we sort of get more details in terms of
No
these are the
detail. Yes.
attributes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
So the token review is basically just verifying that it's a valid proof of identity. That's
Okay. Okay. Got it. They provide node information, detail information, and then they just verify token. Okay.
yes, that's a valid proof of identity, and then based on that, the attributes are considered.
Okay.
So this was the other thing which came up last time. So these are the main 2 questions which were there. And now Prashant has a setup as of now, so we can take a look at it if if we find that interesting.
Could
Yeah,
I have a question? Me
definitely.
too.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
What is inside the cube config in the previous slide? I mean, the first one. Okay, in cube no, the picture
Oh, okay.
where the cube config. Okay, that one. Oops.
Okay. Okay. Too
Okay,
fast?
there was
Sorry.
a cube config configuration that you put in the secret. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
my diagram, Shiv.
The diagram, not this one.
My
Previous.
diagram that I sent you.
Okay.
Yeah, this one.
Okay,
This
Got it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Inside the cube config file, I guess that there are the credentials, so the service account and token to access to the workload cluster.
Exactly. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you put it inside the secret. But
Yeah.
this
So
is the only way to share the credential. I guess that you're going to have several secrets, one for each workload cluster, and maybe the management via secrets that are clear text. I don't know if there are other way to do the same.
no. Yeah. So the reason why this kube config file is there is for it is for doing the token review request actually.
Yes,
So
for the authentication from the management server to the workload server.
Yeah, correct. So for this particular step 3, right, we require the kube config, but as we decided that we'll not have a kube config, but we'll actually create a separate service account token for token review, because the kube config has got much more sysadmin related authorization and things like that. So we want to make it a very restricted thing. So you can, yeah. So this is so that kube config, whatever is there in the diagram, is basically for step 3, and we have modified it. So it should not be kube config, but it should be something else. It should be some tokens
fantastic.
needed for
Yeah, I think that the other alternative, as you show me, is really better from a security perspective. So you don't need to use a secret for the usual reason that you can access to secret with whatever credential, even only for reading the management cluster, and then you can steal it and use it. Instead with the other mechanism is really better.
Yeah,
okay.
that's great. Yeah. So basically, Prashant, can you quickly show that setup? I think it should just take a few minutes, I think. Then,
Yes.
is that fine, folks?
Rahul, you had a question?
Yeah. Please, Prashant, go ahead and start sharing your screen. But meanwhile, I think just to summarize, Shiv, what I heard is that we do not need any kube config to be shared across clusters, right? Like that's the bottom line.
No. Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
We will sort of correct this diagram. I think
Cool.
We are
it's-
sharing is in this demo because it's easier to show. Like we're testing it right now, right? So, but obviously this won't be the case when we develop it. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. The terminal I can see.
Okay. So I'm in the management. Like assume it's the management cluster, and this is the spy server running. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show the spy server config. So in the config map, we have defined a bootstrap certificate, and this certificate, right? This gets transferred to a config map named agents within the same management cluster. And what the flow is that this config map is then sent to the workload cluster. I'm going to the workload cluster now and see, and the agent is running. And if we like see the config map of the agent, we can see that the same bootstrap is here for the authentication. If this is different, then the agent will fail. Right now, I've just manually copied it because there we haven't found like implemented a way to like send the bootstrap certificate from the server to agent. But yeah, that is the whole gist of it because
yeah, just to summarize, right? Prashant, can you come to the below screen?
yes.
Yeah. So can you dump the contents of the config map?
Of the server.
Yeah, the infra agents config map on the server. Right?
Yes. Hold on. Yes.
Yeah. So team, basically, as I mentioned, so the Bootstrap bundle is available in this particular config map, which is basically infra agents or Spire agents. And now with this Bootstrap bundle available on the server, we can use either we can manually copy it or we can use cluster API and push it to the workload cluster, right? Now, once that is done, so can you go to the top screen, Prashant?
Yeah.
So what Prashant has done is that he has manually copied it into a config map, and
Yes.
which is used, which is read by the Spire agent. So basically, now the Spire agent has a Bootstrap configuration, right? So this is the now, so the node attestation can happen. So now, can you just show the node attestation status
Log of the agent.
of the server or of the agent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, so yes,
node registration was
attestation
successful.
Yeah. So and if you see the SPIFFE ID, this is how it look like. So you got a trust domain, which is basically example.org, and Spire agent, a KTS PSAT, and demo cluster. So and a node UID, right? So that's the SPIFFE ID, that's the actual node ID which we have. So yeah, that's it. We just wanted to share this node attestation aspect. So yeah, thanks, Krishna.
Hey, thank you. One question I have, Prashant, when you started sharing your screen, you said that we had in the current demo we had to copy the kube config across the clusters.
Not
Yeah.
kubeconfig, bootstrap certificate.
No, yeah, Bootstrap is fine, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
trust bundle. That
Or
makes sense.
kubeconfig.
Okay. Yeah, there's no kube config transfer involved, right? Like here in this demo.
Like kubeconfig is not. I guess it is transferred So the workloads kubectl, right? I extracted it, I converted it into a secret, and then I created a secret on the management cluster of the workload cluster.
What? No. I didn't understand that step. Why does that have to be done?
Because
Yeah, shall I share my screen?
yeah, you can
Yeah,
because
so
you see
basically, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Rahul, you see that, right? Node
Yes.
attestation requires a kubeconfig file, right? This runs Spire. So I mounted this to the secret.
In the
So,
Spire server, huh?
Yes, yeah.
so Rahul, for the step 3, right, are you able to see the screen? No.
Oh, I'll stop my share, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this step 3, whatever is there, right?
Yeah.
So currently it is using a kubeconfig. For the TLS auth part, right? For this particular auth part, right? We are using a kubeconfig.
Why? Since the PSAT is already transferred, right? Like as part of proof of identity, the projected service account token is already transferred by Spire agent, which
Yeah,
means
that's using the Bootstrap bundle.
correct. But the only reason why kubeconfig is getting it made use of in the context is to get the API server address, right? Like that's all.
No.
Nothing
And
else. Right?
also you need credentials for getting the token review request done, right? You need require the necessary credentials for that.
Okay. Yeah. You're accessing the API server, right? Like, okay.
Yeah, because we're making an API call over here.
No, I don't think this is the model that we should go with, anyways.
Yeah. So that's the reason why we have suggested for a separate SA token for token review separately. But this is a work item which is there, which we need to basically.
No. So we can't we simply make use of something straightforward, such as Spire server. Look, we have cluster APIs, right, from the management clusters that we can inject something into the workload cluster when the workload cluster itself is getting created. So which means that we can inject a one-time use join token, because that is another attestation technique that Spire already supports out of the box. So with
Okay.
that done, what will happen is when with the cluster APIs, we inject two things. One is the trust certificate bundles. It could be URL, or the bundle itself could be injected into the workload cluster. And second is the join token. And this join token availability, the join token, this thing, right? What do you call lifetime, will be 2 hours or 4 hours, or it will be really, really short term, such that the workload cluster has to join within that particular duration. In this case, it's going to join in few minutes, right? Is always going to be the case. So
Yeah, I think that also should work, Rahul. I
correct.
think that should be possible. But just a point over here that even this service account token, right? This is just for doing a token review. You cannot do anything else.
No,
So
I know,
to
I
that
know,
extent,
I know.
it is safe. I mean,
No, it
but
is safe. But the whole point about the Spire server having to push the kube config somehow into the management cluster, that's a no-brainer. That's a no.
no.
Yeah.
We don't need that. I mean, so I mean, I get your point. So
Hmm.
basically, the flow will be slightly different, Rahul, in the sense that
Okay.
so what? So this is how it look like. So basically, the Bootstrap secret controller, right? It will push the Bootstrap bundle to the Spire agent, which will initiate the node attestation. At the same time, the Bootstrap secret
No.
controller
Wait a second. Sure. Sorry. So
yeah.
uh,
So this is trying to map those flows onto Nephew. I think.
no. There is
So
not going to be push into the Spire agent, right? Like this push from the Bootstrap secret control is going to happen through cluster APIs. Is that correct? The light
exactly
green.
right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. So this is going to use a cluster API, and basically at the same time we write one token for accessing the workload cluster API server. And using this token, you can only do a token review and nothing else.
No, agreed. But how would the Spire agent inject the kube config into the target cluster, into the management cluster? Where
No,
is
we don't need to. We don't. So this is basically an alternative. This is basically an alternative instead of using kubeconfig, we need this workload SA token.
No, but this SA token has to be reviewed, right? From the Spire, from the workload cluster. There is a review process involved, right?
No. This SA token is used to launch a review. I mean, this is the credential for the review.
Correct.
So,
So it has to be used to launch a review, which means that the Spire server needs to actually connect to the no, not the Spire. Yeah, the Spire server has to connect to the
correct.
API server, right? Like API server.
Exactly. So the Spire server will read this cluster token
Correct.
and use this to launch an API request as part of
Exactly.
node attestation.
The moment you say has to launch an API request, right? You need the corresponding certificates, address, everything that kubeconfig usually provides.
So that's what this service account token is, right, Rahul? So basically, we will associate, like just like how the kubeconfig has certificates and all that.
No, Shiv, the service account token is very different, right? Service account token is just a bearer token, but the kubeconfig contains many other informations, many other details as well, like where to reach for the API server, what is the token, certificate bundle. All of this is part of the kubeconfig. What I'm trying to say is, if the Spire server has to reach out to the
got your point.
Yeah,
I got your point.
But
So probably,
question, during
please,
registration, workload cluster registration, should collect the kubeconfig in the management cluster?
So basically, again, my understanding is that we can associate very fine-grained tokens for accessing a given API server. So kubeconfig is like, a huge thing in terms of, you get a bunch of permissions, you have a certificate and you have a role and that stuff. But then I think you can create a service account with a given cluster with very fine-grained I got your point, Rahul. Probably I'll,
Okay.
I'll basically elaborate on that and we can probably
but just to clarify to Byung, right? Like, Spire agent doesn't need the kubeconfig for Spire server. It's the other way around. In this context, the Spire server needs a way to connect to the API server. Spire agent only connects to the Spire server here. But the Spire server, for attestation purpose, right, to finish the attestation, it needs access to the API server of the target workload cluster.
Understand.
But not the other way. Yeah, Brown. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm not talking about the other way. Just
okay. Got
just
it.
talking to the Spire agent, they need the information where to.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. I get you this one. I'll add more detail or we'll take a look at that.
That's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting the demo up. It really helps, to iron out these minute details. Fantastic.
It's good. Nice.
Okay, I guess what else do we have for discussion? Now, the question is, this Friday, is there something that we can take back to the RX working group? Last Friday, the primary things that we had discussed was about the security improvements, but I wanted to understand from this team, is there something specific that we can take back to the RX scope working group? Because I intend on joining all of those meetings and providing an update on a regular basis. Okay, I'll just
progress of what we done today, and then
sure. I'll just provide them the regular updates, right? Like this was some of the discussions that were happened. The questions that will be asked is, when are we actually ready? There are two questions that usually will get asked. When are we ready to actually have a detailed technical deep dive as to along with the requirements document? Now, I feel that from the user identity perspective, we have a good requirements document. But from the workload identity, the requirement spec is kind of sparse, I would say. Right? Do you think we are in a position to actually take it back to the RX scope working group?
I mean, if there are any specific comments, we can take a look at it. Or
Okay. So what I'll do is then maybe. Okay. So you're saying that we already have a document. If there are any specific comments, then we can take it up, right? Like that's what you're saying.
That's what I feel, Rahul. I'll also take a look at it. I mean, if in case some more detail can be added, we can.
No, so what I'm hoping is that we can add some of these minute details, right? Like the people will ask these questions, as what is the source of trust?
Okay, okay.
These questions will come up. Once we answer these questions, right, like it will be pretty clear to them as to what we are trying to achieve. Otherwise,
Sure.
we'll go into loops, right? Like just providing a high level set of this thing is not going to help. They understand it, right? Like it's not like those folks over there are pretty. They have enough understanding of the system
Got
more
it.
than us, right? Like is what I.
Sure. So Rahul, then should we, probably add some more? I mean, if we that will is probably part of the design document. Can we have a bare design document in place, or the PPT also should there
Yeah,
be?
I feel two things we can do for the next
Okay.
this thing. One, have a reference design document which basically
Okay.
shows connectivity and what are the steps. Two steps we need to say. We will have to have two sets of arrow.
Okay.
How do we establish the root of trust?
Okay.
What is the attestation mechanism? Once we are clear on that, right? Like
Right.
once we deal that, then we take it back. Maybe we can have one or two more options.
Okay.
I feel that the joint token might be a pretty good avenue for us to begin with. It's least this thing, and it's one of the most popular one that is used in such kind of scenarios. The other
Definitely.
is
Sure.
the other is, can we actually install a Nefio R2 release on a kind cluster, or even R1 for that matter? Doesn't matter. Whatever works, right? The kind environment really works great out of the box. We can set up a demo on that and actually try to work out a use case, like including issuing the identity to these workloads, which are real workloads. It should not look, whatever work Prashant has shown today, essentially we should be able to replicate it on Nefio's instance easily. What do you think?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be a very appropriate thing to show, right, to this team and to the RX scope working group as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that it's basically more of a prototype and how it feels, and yeah.
Correct. The only next step that happens to be done after that is show the actual use case, which means that show if the authorization has to happen, how will that flow look like? That's that's the end result for all of this work, right? Like the workload should be able to authorize each other. That should be the next step. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we need to do that now, but if we install a Nefio cluster, client cluster, show up the same demo that Prashant showed up, but with the real attestation, like using the final attestation that we want to use,
Right.
and then take it back to the RX scope working group. And before taking back there, we discuss in this team here. Once we agree on that particular flow, then take it back to the this thing. So if we have a reference final design, and we have a flow, in fact, actually reference final design should itself be good enough with the attestation details. If we can get demo in time for that, that would be even better. But no pressure there, not a mandatory requirement to have a demo.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll work on that, and then we'll keep the team posted.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think this is good. What else? Anything else, folks? We have 6 more minutes left to go.
No, from me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day, good weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.